Crypto Legends Live Amsterdam.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to have you, everyone here. I'm Adam. I'm the CEO of Fiat Republic, co-hosting this with Bitstamp, whom we have on the stage as well, JB, the CEO. Just wanted to sort of, before I start, say a couple of words, intro the event. And before I do that, actually, super big thanks to the team over at Fiat Republic for organizing this. Faria, our amazing superstar, organizer, synchronizer, and then Charles as well, over there by the camera. Also thanks to Bitstamp for agreeing to be with us here and co-hosting this with us. As we basically bring this conversation to the next chapter, we had the previous event back last year, and it was in London. It was amazing. We were talking about very important things to the advancement of the crypto industry. And this is the sort of, we're going deeper today. We're going to go into a couple of subjects and explore, regulatory matters. We're going to explore how to scale the crypto economy, how we should focus on partnerships rather than conflicts or adversarial narrative. And we're going to go into that a bit more at this event. I just wanted to sort of spend a bit of time because, by the way, we've announced a partnership with Bitstamp today, actually, also. The partnership will see Bitstamp join our EagleNet network, which will allow for instant fiat settlements in between Bitstamp customers and Fiat Republic's customers. And I just wanted to hand over to JB for a couple of minutes if you can give us the perspective, how you see the partnership from your point of view.
Yeah, sure. And, hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Congratulations on our partnership, very exciting. That's a nice way for us, to build, instant settlement and to give a better crypto access to our clients. So big kudos to the team. I think you have been working very, very hard for the last, let's say, 18 months. We are super excited to partner with you, and we look forward to expand our partnership over time.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to be partnering. I must admit, I'm a long-time user of Bitstamp, and it makes me really proud to be able to see, the company Fiat Republic and joining that ecosystem to hopefully make crypto more mainstream and seamless. So I just wanted to dig into a couple of the themes that we discussed at the previous event. So we discussed how to embed traditional payments into crypto, how to bridge Web 2 and Web 3, and then how to become compliance fit in crypto or digital assets. So as I said, we're going to go a little bit deeper today. And for those unfamiliar with Fiat Republic, what we do, we're a full stack regulated fiat gateway. We bridge traditional banking with crypto or digital assets. And you might think this is a monumental challenge, especially right now. We're hearing news from the US about Coinbase. We're hearing news about Binance. At the same time, we're witnessing MiCA getting voted through in the European Parliament and put into law. So a bit of a mix of, good news, bad news. And then we see, or some of us think, like, what do we make of this? Like, how does that impact the long-term prospects of the industry? Is crypto going to die, or is crypto going to thrive? I would strongly argue that crypto is going to thrive. It's not going anywhere, and we need bridges to bring it to the sort of mainstream adoption phase. We talk about importance of dialogue at the last Crypto Legends Live in London. Dialogue. It's a very powerful word because dialogue is almost the antithesis of conflict, right? If you talk, you can talk and argue, right? But this is not conflict, as long as it doesn't escalate. Dialogue enables partnership. Dialogue enables us to partner with Bitstamp, right? Dialogue enables innovation because partnership enables innovation and ultimately increases the adoption of crypto. So I just wanted to end with like three things that I believe and will enable additional dialogue, much needed dialogue between TradFi and crypto or digital assets, I propose three things. Number one, we need a clear benefits case for the TradFi community. We need to be able to articulate those benefits clearly enough for the TradFi community, bankers, regulators, to start, embracing crypto as an opportunity rather than as a threat. Okay, and this can be commercial opportunities. This can be, additional customers. This can be, as we increase the adoption of crypto, more consumers will be using, crypto services. They will also require traditional finance, or what we call currently traditional finance services as well. So everyone wins in this scenario, and we need to stress that opportunity that is ahead of us. Number two, regulation. We need to introduce that level playing field, because we saw how MiCA creates that impetus for change, for innovation, how MiCA enables us to have a conversation of like, what is it going to look like in a year's time when it's implemented? How are different players going to position themselves relative to one another? What is that going to mean for the industry? And we're looking forward to that, right? Why are we looking forward to that? Because it levels the playing field. It creates a platform on top of which you can build. And number three, or last but not least, education. Education is super, super important. I spend quite a bit of time, meandering in layer 2 DApp communities. Those brave developers that are like every day building solutions to real world problems, right? And they're really struggling to explain this to your sort of regular consumer, to the regular audience. We need more of that to come to surface. We need more of that to be explained. What is complex needs to be simplified so that the regular average consumer, my mom, can begin to understand it. So I think very strongly that to enable dialogue, that is productive and constructive, we need those three things and three elements. And I know for sure that we will touch on all three of them. So without further ado, I'm handing over to Sophie and our esteemed guests to take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adam. So we will jump into a quick discussion that we'll have around making crypto universal. So how to establish a multinational finance business. And to do that, we have amazing guests. I'm really, really pleased to have JB, Teana, and Arina around to discuss the topic. Maybe can we jump into a quick introduction of the three of you before we start the panel? Arina.
Yeah, I will start. Hi, everyone. My name is Arina. I'm from CX.io. I'm leading our financial partnership with both fiat and crypto partners. And I'm also one of the directors of our Lithuanian entity. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Arina.
I'm Teana Baker-Taylor. I am the Vice President of Strategy and Policy for Circle in EMEA, so I cover the region. Looking at our international expansion, I'm also a board member of Crypto UK, which is the UK's trade body, and the group that supports the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Crypto and Digital Assets. So working with parliamentarians every day on policy development.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm JB Graftieaux. I'm the CEO of Bitstamp. Thank you so much for being here today. As you know, Bitstamp, we are a crypto exchange operating globally. The company has been in place since 2011, so we have seen a lot, and we are happy to share more details, during that conversation today.
Thank you so much, guys. So let's jump into the first part of this panel. And what I would like to talk about is global scaling and local versus global operation. I would like to discuss about the challenges and opportunities of scaling crypto operation globally while taking care of everything locally. Maybe let's start with JB and talk about a bit what has been your experience with one of the oldest or the first exchange in bringing actually your business from what it was back in the days, like unregulated, and I mean because regulations were not existing back then, but in Slovenia to a business that is actually present globally now.
Yeah, sure. So, I joined Bitstamp. It was back in 2014. It was really the early days. We were probably like 8 people in a garage at a time. There was no regulation. Bitcoin was the money of the crime. Bitcoin was $200. It was a very different environment compared to today. So I think the main challenge for us was, okay, what's the secret sauce, to attract more clients, more institutional clients, to be the trusted exchange. And what we have done back in 2014 is, we went through different countries in Europe, basically to try to meet with the regulators. And really one by one, we went to the UK and Germany and France, and can we be regulated? And the answer was, no, we don't regulate crypto. It's as simple as that. So we went to Luxembourg, I met with the CSSF, and that was the only country where the shop was open. So we started engaging with them. It took 3.5 years, millions of dollars of fees, legal fees, to get a license, but we did it. So back in 2016, we got our first license. And because we want to operate, in a fully compliant fashion, we went through a long journey of, being regulated in the US. So same story with the BIT license in New York. And what we are experiencing today, is we are in a phase of regulatory patchwork. I mean, the ecosystem is not very well organized in terms of regulation. Each country has its own approach, which means that, if we want to operate globally, to your question, Sophie, we need to be, compliant in France, in Italy, in Spain, and, many different countries, which means, it's fragmented, it's expensive. 1/3 of our people are working in legal and compliance, to offer security, compliance, and the best experience as well to our users. And the evolution of the regulatory landscape is constant. We have seen in the last 48 hours, Binance or Coinbase in the US, we are, really pushing for clarity in terms of regulation. MiCA might be a good access, to enable mass adoption in the near future. And yeah, if you want to operate a global crypto exchange, you need to invest, quite significantly in legal governance, compliance everywhere in the world. It's a challenge. You need to attract the right resources. You need to attract the right talents. We are very happy. We have 450 people, all of them super talented. But it's a long journey, and you never know, how the regulatory landscape will evolve. And we have seen that in the last 48 hours, basically. Yeah.
Thank you, JB.
Happy to share more, of course.
No, it's really interesting to see, effectively how things have evolved at Bitstamp over all those years. What I would like to piggyback on with actually, Teana, based on your experience at Circle, but also at Crypto UK, is that how do you go about understanding local market dynamics and going into a market from a regulatory perspective, but also maybe operational?
This isn't working. Okay, I talk loud. So when I entered the space from banking, I went to work for a very small Bitcoin-only exchange on purpose because I wanted to understand the full business inside and out. And since then, I have kind of bounced back and forth between advocacy and lobbying type roles, working with regulators and running businesses. So I was the general manager for Binance in the UK. I led Crypto.com's development in Europe. So I've had a very similar experience in not just venue shopping, because now it's gotten a little bit better than it was in 2014. And we have jurisdictions that are vying for our business. I call out France as one of those that have kind of said, look, we have a full digital asset or a crypto regulatory framework. It's not just a VASP or a CASP registration. We understand this space. France was really instrumental in developing the baseline recommendations for MiCA. So they're leveraging that experience and the time that they've spent to really bolster their resources and their knowledge to be competitive in this market. And ultimately, now we're in this space where, thankfully, businesses like Bitstamp and Circle will not have to go jurisdiction by jurisdiction and jurisdiction. So, unfortunately, that time and money spent, in those early years, I think helped to shape the framework that we're going to have now. But the beauty of MiCA is that you'll be able to apply for a license in one country. And once you attain that, you'll be able to passport to 27 member states. So you have this whole trading block where you can, with confidence, go to market with a set of portfolio services that straight off the bat, you're going to be fine. Right now, that doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean that it's a light touch, process to be able to achieve that. But from a commercial perspective, it certainly fills you with much more confidence to start to hire people, build out platforms, and go into those markets and serve some of those countries that have been underserved, right? Because there's been a lack of clarity. I think when you apply that on a global level and you look at the way that regulators are looking at the space, it still is very fragmented. And the stuff that happens in the US obviously has a sentiment impact around the world. But if you take a step back, Japan also came out this week with regulatory recommendations. Singapore has frameworks in place. Everyone around the world is looking at stablecoin regulation, which really is the fuel for crypto capital markets, and it allows them to move around the world. So I think that's really positive too. So ultimately, I think being able to operationalize and commercialize is being aided. But certainly, going back to Adam's point, one of the things that this industry still struggles with is, excuse my language, but getting our shit together and running in the same direction, holding hands, right? We need to do that. We need to have a single focus of mainstream adoption and working together to get there. There's enough business for everybody, in my view.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I'm looking forward to jumping back like in the next section of the discussion around like regulation and everything that is happening, because there is lots to say in actually bringing crypto mainstream. Since we have the joy of having Arina, I would like to discuss about the hot potato topic that is payments when bringing a business to be global. Can you tell us a bit about the challenges that you have encountered as part of your experience at CX.io and also your previous experience on playing global and local when it comes to payment?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question because we, as well as our colleagues here, we are Global Exchange. We're serving all the countries and regions, of course, not a fucking five countries. And definitely I can say that for global payments, we still a bit in 20th century. So what I mean here that transactional fees are quite high, and settlement is super slow. And everyone knows still that hypothetically, if you're lost somewhere in a road, your SWIFT payment, it's almost impossible to trace it for days, sometimes even weeks. And what is most complicated here that you don't know usually even what was the issue and where in the chain it was an issue. So your banking partner, your bank, like sender bank, did not like something, or receiving bank or intermediary bank, and that's quite painful. And as my colleague said, that in general, everyone understands that regulation worldwide is based by the same AML, KYC, and compliance practices. But in real life, it's quite fragmental, and each bank appetite may be different. And this is quite painful for the businesses. For local payments, for local transactions, I think the most painful moment is that we, especially in emergency countries, right, we still see that many mainstream customers, they do not have access to basic normal for Europeans, for UK, US customers, payment banking needs. They simply are not educated well. And of course, especially guys from, elderly groups, like customers with a lack of technological or fintech knowledge, no one is indicating them in emergency regions, right? And as well, for example, as ID verification is not something we used to have and used to see as a normal here in Europe, yeah. And all of this mention leads to one big nice word, fraud, which is always so sophisticated. And they inventing all the time, every day, something new. And I think that the only way how to beat all that mentioned as my colleague said previously, we need to have for all payment players, for all fintech players, and I mean here classic banks, fintech, and also crypto exchanges, like the one touching fiat, definitely, one understandable like a payment rules, fiat rules, how to make your transaction compliant, how to make your clients compliant, and etc. And this collaboration and this exchange of the best practices is a key of success, I think.
Can I just add one quick thing there? We laugh at the fraud statement, but honestly, now that we have these very sophisticated and in some cases, more bespoke regulatory guidance than I think we expected, it will be things like very simple fraud payments that slow us down. So for example, in the UK right now, there is a whole regulatory review around the payment services regulation post-Brexit. And one of those areas that they're focusing on is push payment fraud. And so the challenge that we have in a open source, 24-hour immediate settlement environment is there's not an ability to pull that transaction back, right? And so it may be these very sexy, super basic challenges that are part of the traditional financial stack that affect us more than we think they're going to.
No, that's a good point. And if we jump back to our second theme that is around the regulation and how actually collaborating with regulators is the only way forward to bring to mainstream, I would love, Teana, that you tell us, out of your Crypto UK hat, what have been the best practices that you have implemented maybe with the organization to actually create this trust dialogue with the regulator, but also push them to really understand what are the real problem of the crypto community and how to tackle them.
Sure. So education is still definitely a challenge. And I think that one of the things that is different kind of in the UK and Europe than it is in the US, I've done, a number of regulatory work in the US as well, and you can pretty much get in front of most members of Congress and their staff. It's not designed that way in the UK, nor the European Union or Commission or the Parliament, which is this kind of, trifecta of agencies that legislate. And so we have to be a little bit more considerate about how we put in place those engagement programs. And ultimately, I think what the industry has historically done is try to sit down with policymakers and explain what we're trying to do and why it's cool and why it's different. And we focus a lot on the technology. This is a very standard fintech challenge where you go in and you tell somebody about your widget and you think it's super cool and they should be super excited about your widget. They don't give a shit, right? They don't care. And so, reframing that from the perspective of what do these people care about? So if I'm a parliamentarian and I get phone calls from my constituents because they've been scammed and they think it's a crypto scam, it's not a crypto scam, right? Crypto is never involved. This is a regular phishing scam and they've sent them fiat money and thinking that, they're going to get Bitcoin, deposited in some random wallet, right? That's not a crypto scam. But these are the phone calls that they get. And so you need to approach your education efforts based on what's important to them. So if I am on the Treasury Select Committee, maybe I have a number of issues around how this is going to impact monetary sovereignty. If I sit on, an international committee that's looking at security, national security. So how does ransomware factor into this? If I sit on a committee that is looking at kind of international economic trade, how does that fit into this? And we need to tailor our messages. So at Crypto UK, we have a number of engagement efforts where we do briefings for parliamentarians and their staff, most critically. Never be afraid to meet with staff. Staff tell these people what to think. And these people have a huge portfolio of stuff that they're supposed to care about. And we're a very small portion of that. And I think the other thing is, if you have the opportunity to work through a trade body, as a business, you're always going to have primary concerns for you. But if you work with an organization that can speak on behalf of the industry with one voice, that is very helpful. It is very difficult if I don't know a lot about this and I'm hearing 3 different stories from 3 different people. And I think the third thing that I would say is understand that we're still in this legislative period, right? So people complain a lot about the regulators. We need to understand that regulators are not empowered to act until they receive legislative directive to do so, right? And that is very frustrating. But I think putting that time and effort into providing sound information and going into meetings with the intention of informing our policymakers so that they can make informed decisions, not just agree with you, I think goes a long way. Be a resource.
Yeah, thank you so much for also sharing what you have been doing with Crypto UK and bringing the industry forward. JB, can you
say the same thing over and over and over and over and over? That is the thing. I think there's a lot of people that have been around for a while and they're like, oh my God, I can't have this conversation again. Sorry, you're going to have to.
Yeah, I think we are all in the same boat here. JB, can you tell us a bit about the role of self-regulation actually and how it can complement the work of the regulators?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned is, what we are really trying to do every day is to engage with regulators, legislators. We are part of, banking association. We are not a bank, but we are part of the banking association, fund industry association, really to be in a position, to share our voice and to do a lot of education on what's crypto and, how to operate a crypto exchange. What is, the regulation that we should have in place for money laundering, for instance, not money laundering, anti-money laundering. Sorry. So we spend a lot of time really on the market to connect with decision makers, regulators, legislators, sharing best practices, really to try to educate and make sure we can shape regulation. It's a lot of work. It's a lot, really, really intense work. We have, a very good team doing that. But that's the key for us to protect the ecosystem. So that's a way for us really to try to shape regulation together with legislators. We have done that. I mentioned earlier, I joined Bitstamp 2014. We have done that for the last 10 years, basically. So it's a really long, effort. But at the same time, working with the industry together in the same boat, that's probably the only way for us, to raise our voice and be in a position to shape regulation, not only in Europe, but in the US and everywhere where crypto is allowed today.
I have a quick question for you. You mentioned like the Fund Association and Banking Association. The Electronic Money Association is another TradFi organization that works a lot with us. How do you find, I have noticed a real shift in the traditional lobbying against us, right? And so they have a long history of engaging with the regulator. We're kind of new on the scene. How have you guys found navigating that space with the traditional lobbying incumbent?
So banking association and also the fund industry, what's interesting for us is that they are really interested in entering the crypto space. So they want to get educated on crypto. And that's a nice way for us, to educate them, to share knowledge, to establish partnerships as well, and basically to try to influence them on having one single voice so that we can potentially, influence regulators and legislators. But to your point earlier, you have to repeat and repeat and repeat all the time. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Arina, I believe you have a long self-regulated journey at CX.io. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I actually think that we can definitely say that CX.io alongside with Bitstamp here, we are so long on the market. Oh my God, we're like dinosaurs. And we started the self-regulation approach back then when we as well as a Bitstamp here and other crypto exchanges were trying to receive any possible license on the market. Just for what reason? Especially for building this trust in front of our financial partners, in front of our customers. We were literally going to the countries and asking, can you please license us? And they're like, oh, there is no license per se. Yeah, just do what you want. And during the process, during the many years, us trying to knock these doors, we built internal processes, procedures, technical solutions, which kind of made us self-regulated. And when finally governance came in some countries, came to the conclusion, okay, we're going to license these guys. We need to make some regulation. That was, I would say, easy for us because we just were prepared. Yeah. Okay, we polished a bit our processes, we polished a bit our procedures according to legislation, but we were ready. And I think for the business in crypto which want to stay in a game, this is the only way. And it's again and again, as we said already several times here today, this is all around education, and this needs to come from the inside of the company. And I just remembered when I was listening for you guys, I just remembered one dialogue I had with one bank, no names. So what we like to do, what I personally like to do when I want to work with one or another payment partner or banking partner or acquirer, I usually always go back to my team, especially our head of compliance, not the one who is not one from the guys doing front, MLROs and etc., but to the team actually doing compliance check. They know how everything is built. And so I'm always going back to them and I ask them, okay, can you jump on the call with me? I want to show to this particular bank that we check this, we monitor that, we have these procedures and etc. And I remember, so for one bank, we even fly in. And after 1 hour or more presentation, compliance of that bank was sitting like, oh my God, you check more than us. Oh my God, we don't have this. Oh my God, you have so many different nice technology things. Oh, you measuring triangle of the face, or you have MLH, or you have this and that. Oh my God, we're so legacy. And to sum up, what I want to say here, that the key to successful cooperation here, we need to share expertise. You know, crypto companies, classic banks, because classic banks, they were on the market for centuries. And they are anyway most experienced on the market because they know how to speak to regulators. They have this, especially huge banks, they have this understanding about complex regulation worldwide. And I think that if they want and will share with us, we will share our experience and our knowledge about crypto. We're going to, educate them as well. And hopefully we will be seeing, we will be facing the moment when crypto is not considered at high risk anymore. Maybe just risk without high. And, because I hope that this is the key moment which can change banks' understanding about crypto, that they will not be afraid because they know that we crypto companies, we do exactly the same, we can be trusted, and we don't want to harm anyone. Yeah. So,
Thank you so much. That's actually quite funny to see how you have self-regulated internally and getting ready for regulations ahead of it happening. So before we jump into the questions to the audience, any questions you might have for our guest, I would love to get a bit of a pulse of what you guys think about Mika. Could you tell me, or for the ones that think that overall Mika is good, and I would like also our panelists to share, is to raise their hand. Do you think Mika is overall good or overall bad? Overall good? Okay, so that's actually quite good. I think we're 70%, 30%. can I have a few comments on your end, and after that we jump in discussions with our audience.
I would say for me it's pretty good because that will clarify the regulatory landscape. That will probably create level playing fields. Today we don't have a level playing field on the market, and also that will probably enable, I would say, better entry to the market from small companies which do not necessarily have plenty of millions of dollars to spend with lawyers, basically to apply for license in one country and then to passport the activity across all the EU member states. So level playing field, clarity, and also most importantly, MiCA should bring consumer protection, which would trigger probably massive adoption of crypto over time. So fully supportive from my perspective.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. And I would say in addition to the clarity, the confidence to build, and the ability to scale at, the trading block size, I think the other critical benefit that hopefully MiCA will bring is the acceleration of adoption. Because we have these checks and balances in place, people will feel, consumers, but equally businesses, will start to see an influx of capital that we've been kind of waiting for to enter this space. And hopefully that then drives really great consumer solutions that remove a lot of the friction that exists today for people to be able to actually use crypto to do stuff. So, in general, I think for a stablecoin issuer, there's a lot of challenges with MiCA. But generally speaking, I think that those challenges will be outweighed with the opportunities we've talked about.
Yeah, just to add here, definitely, I think MiCA is super great thing invented. And exactly, if you, as a small company, for example, applied for one VASP registration, and then you can proceed with passportization amongst European member states, that's super nice. But what I think exactly now at the moment, it's a bit, a bit tricky now. MiCA is up and running, but until everything is implemented around it, I think anyway, companies, players on the market, they're a bit afraid, like, okay, so I received VASP registration in whatever country. Until everything is settled and everything is done and covered, what's going to happen? Should I go, for example, for receiving additional VASP registration in some another European countries just to have a backup, because hypothetically, something may change, risk appetite of the country. Yeah, this is maybe not true from the perspective of, how compliance see that. But as a mainstream customer, I think still, because no one understands in full how, in general, MiCA will operate. When we start to implement all the rules, I think that small companies, they're a bit lost. They need more guidance. They need more understanding exactly what to do. You need to do A, B, C, D, and then you're covered and you secure and you can focus on your business and do not think and do not focus around compliance and regulation and licensing, like you're safe.
Thank you, guys. Any questions in the public?
Sure. Could I ask JB, with this latest activity in the U.S., you obviously took the path of regulatory best compliance you could find, I suppose, within the space. So could you talk about how you're set up in the U.S. and how that is related or unrelated to what's going on in terms of your posture within the U.S.?
Yeah, happy to do so. So our first step in the US was to get a BIT license some years ago. And what we have done is to obtain in every state where we need a license, what we call an MTL license, which is a money transmitter license. So today we have a portfolio of 42 licenses in the States. We have, of course, local presence. We have risk and compliance. We have local management. So really the whole governance in place for us to comply with the requirements. What we do there is to engage with regulators on an ongoing basis. For instance, when we launch new product or when we need to seek for some regulatory advice, it would be a mix of working with legal counsels, but also try to engage with regulators to get maximum clarity. And I would say for the US, as soon as we are not 100% sure, so even if we are 99% sure, we won't launch the product just to protect the exchange. I have to admit it's very expensive, governance that we have to build and develop over time to maintain, our exchange in the US. But the key to success probably is really this level of engagement with regulators, working with the industry, group industry, having the best people on the ground, also to make sure that we stay on the safe side. But I saw Coinbase yesterday, as you have seen. I mean, looking at the numbers, they were mentioning they met with the regulators 30 times in the last 2 years to get clarity on staking and other type of assets. But at the end of the day, the SEC just issued the order. So this is a bit of a scary environment, I have to admit. So for us, as soon as we are not 100% sure, we won't launch a product or list the assets on the exchange. Yeah. I don't know if that answered to the question. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank
you. Last question.
I do have one though, for Teana, if I may. With your crypto UK hat, let's say, how do you see the UK legislature leveling up with MiCA, and how are they working on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we're looking at this in two parts. Right now, there's a bill going through Parliament. It's at the end stages, so it should receive royal assent in the next month, which is the Financial Services and Markets Bill. And basically what this does is bring stablecoins into the regulated perimeter in primary legislation. So it's basically in that bill. And through secondary legislation, there is the provision for the Treasury to bring in a crypto asset regime for the rest of crypto assets, which is pretty similar to the way that MiCA is structured as well. So MiCA brings stablecoins into enforcement in 12 months and then 18 months for the rest of crypto assets. So all things being equal, potentially stablecoins will be regulated almost to the day in circa this time next year in the UK as well as in Europe. So I think that's very interesting. Further down the road, the rest of the crypto asset package, there's a number of consultations. The response from industry has been very positive all around the world. The Treasury and the FCA and Parliament government in general, has been complimented for their very holistic approach to these consultations. Now, the devil's in the detail, right? So we move from this kind of political posture of we want to be a crypto hub into, and you'll be very familiar with this, and the actual execution at the operational level of what the words in a bill mean in practical level day to day. So how do we bring these assets into enforcement? How do we supervise them? What are the requirements going to be for local management, for capital buffers, for all of these elements that go alongside of this? So I actually think that it's probably tracking alongside MiCA. I think that's important for the UK to stay competitive. And I actually think that the activities that are happening in areas like in major other financial markets, treasury hubs like Hong Kong, Singapore, are driving what we call in the regulation space equivalence, right? For global companies to be able to mirror their operations and procedures so that they can be compliant around the world. The U.S. is the outlier. I don't believe for a second that Brian Armstrong is going to pack up, his 1,000 people and move them offshore. But I do see businesses actually leaning into other jurisdictions and focusing on expansion plans or internationalization plans that maybe they might have not prioritized as much, to maybe take the foot off the gas on the U.S. because they're 99% sure, and that 1% means you're getting a Wells notice. Nobody wants that.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Arina, Anna and JB, and I wish you a great continuation for drinks and food now.